Hi, I'm Franklin. So I wrote down some notes about what I'm going to talk about today. So if I'm looking down, you can see my notebook right here, but that's why. Um, Happy National Coming Out Day, first of all. I wanted to upload this video to share my experiences, growing up and coming to terms with my sexuality, um, in the hopes that this normalizes the conversation, uh, and hopefully one day this won't be necessary for people. So I grew up in Dallas, Texas. Um, Pretty typical family. A mom, a dad, a sister. Typical on the outside. Um, all families have their issues. We had our issues. We have our issues. But my parents never divorced. My sister was my older sister. And I went to a private Catholic school from preschool through eighth grade and then a private Catholic high school. So I spent all of my childhood growing up with that faith. Um, and I also, in tandem with being gay, have to discuss my depression, my anxiety, because a lot of it does stem from not being gay itself, but from, how I thought other people felt about it and my fears. So I guess to start out, I can talk about how, even as young as being in preschool through first grade, there were things about me that were different. Um, I think it's pretty typical for boys that age, to play with dolls. But, I also was very obsessed with the pink Power Ranger, as opposed to all of them. Like I said, I don't know that that's a very uncommon thing, but it did kind of lead into, upon reflection, a fuller picture that makes sense to me now. You know, Even as young as being in first grade, I realized that, I felt a certain way about other guys. Whether it's wanting to be friends with them, which is what every kid wants, or not, I think that there was something that was different. When I got to being about second grade, I is when I started hearing the terms, gay, faggot, dyke. And when I learned what those terms meant or what they were used for, you know, obviously I didn't want to be associated with that because they had negative connotations associated with them. And so, when I got to being around puberty age, fifth, sixth grade, is when I really started to feel attracted to other guys. And in my head, I always knew that, I knew I was attracted to guys, but there was an inner dialogue that I tried to convince myself that I was still straight. You know, it was repression. It was trying to come to terms with me being different, which I couldn't accept at that time. Also, around this age, sixth grade was my most hated year of school and probably my entire life. Um, I would come home every day and pretty much tell my mom, I want to be dead. I wish I were dead. And I knew that that was the case, even years after that I had been like that. But I think what really struck me as being so bad about that is that my mom told me, she was like, yeah, I remember back when you were in sixth grade, you talked about hating your life and wanting to be dead. And even though I knew I had felt that way and said those things, I think it stuck with me because I knew that someone else had remembered that so thoroughly. Going into sixth grade, I remember telling myself, you do not need to talk to anyone unless they speak to you first. That's a very unhealthy way to approach life. You know, I was overweight, I was uncomfortable about my identity. Um, Obviously, puberty hit, and nobody likes that. Um, so it was a recipe for disaster in middle school. I made it through, thankfully. Um, but that's also the age where my religion classes did start talking about being gay and how there's nothing wrong with being gay. You just can't act upon it. And that was the kind of framework that was in my head, is that okay, I have these thoughts, but as long as I don't do anything gay, I'll be fine. I'll get into heaven. So, getting into high school, I wasn't as awkward. I felt a bit better, but, there was still that repressed feeling toward other guys that I just wouldn't accept. I had crushes, quote unquote, on girls throughout middle school and high school. Um, and I remember, I think it was sophomore, junior year, I was telling a few people, yeah, I'm asexual. I just don't have any feeling toward anybody, which obviously not true. Um, but I think about that, and there's nothing wrong with being asexual. But for me, someone who very much does feel a certain way toward men, for me to just say that I don't feel any way at all toward anybody, that's a very grim thing for me to think about now. Um, junior and senior year is when I really started to more realistically think about my sexuality and get to a point where I finally told other people that I wasn't straight. But even then, I came out as bi. There was part of me that thought maybe this can soften the blow. If people think I'm still into girls, maybe there's still hope for me. Um, it wasn't until I got to college when I started really feeling like comfortable saying I was gay out loud. And even now, it feels weird, to be honest. Um, but my senior year of high school, I talked about being depressed back in sixth grade. It hit again my senior year of high school because transition, life is hard. And, you know, I think that always lingered with me throughout college and up until now and continues to. Um, my family and school never addressed, you know, sex really. They talked about abstinence, they talked about the different STIs that exist, but I was never taught sex, let alone gay sex. And it really affected my attitude toward sex and everything related to it. Um, you know, Expressing emotion as much as that, I have trouble doing that with people. And, you know, as much as that isn't related to sex itself, it is still that basis of, expressing love toward other humans and being willing to cry and being able to cry in front of other people, showing frustration. Those were things that I never felt comfortable doing and still to this day struggle doing. And I have to make that connection to my sexuality. It's this theme of feeling repressed, like I'm not allowed to, or if I do it, it's wrong. When I finally told my sister and my mom that I'm gay, I couldn't even say it in person. I texted them, which, I don't think was wrong because it's my business. I get to do with it as I wish. But, it's just another signal that these are things that I'm still uncomfortable dealing with out loud. You know, I'm currently on a job hunt right now. And this is another really stressful time in my life where there's a transition. And, as recently as last week, I got to a point where I was feeling awful. I had to text a crisis line because I was having these very intrusive thoughts and it was scary. And one of them was that you are gay. and that was related to this feeling of, you know, I should be dead. And even at this age, I'm 25, and I have been publicly, quote unquote, out since 18. You know, this is something I'm still dealing with every day, and I think I will for a long time because I spent so many years repressing it. So I want you to know that as much as this is a hard experience, I couldn't imagine living life straight or athletic or without as much empathy as I have. Because while this is a really hard existence sometimes, I think I have such a rich and colorful life that I don't know that I would have otherwise. So it's hard. Um, and I'm still struggling every day, really. But this is something that I have finally come to feel comfortable enough about to upload a video to the world. So that's it. I'm gay. And I hope that, one day this isn't going to be necessary, that coming out is not even a term that we use because we're not coming out of anywhere that's outside of ourselves or from somewhere that's unnatural. We're coming to terms with ourselves. I think that it's less of me coming out as gay as me coming out as me. And I like that way of thinking about it because regardless of who or what I am, I'm Franklin, and that's that's perfect. So, happy National Coming Out Day.